This is the Garden of Eden. And your ignorance has banished you and me and the bulk of humanity. But you see, there is no time or space in spirit. So this day, on October 16th, in the year of God's incarnation through the man Jesus who achieved Christ, could be your day of salvation. And why? Because we have these great principles that we are unwilling, even though they may not be popular with the majority of our species. What we need to do is what Jesus said, enter the closet. Now, in the Bay Area, that's a term that's very familiar. Many people have spent years coming out of the closet. But we need to go into the closet. And there, I love this description. I love the fact that I was born a Catholic because I love some of the things I learned, because I love Jesus. And there, as Jesus describes subjective, universal mind, the Father. He called it the Father because that's what the unlettered people of that time could accept. There, the Father who knoweth what you have need, what your needs are before you even utter it. And how does that correlate to what I said earlier about the principle of intelligence? Because the Father, or the universal subconscious mind as spirit in me, can only know its own nature. And to the extent that my prayer and your prayer is to have more of its nature, it responds to us. But when we go in there, so to speak, into the inner sanctum, and we hold ourselves as having, as Ernest said, there are no mistakes. Because if you think there are mistakes, the likelihood is you'll make another one. So we go into this state, this inner sanctum, and we say, this is my prayer, that I may be washed clean by the waters of your high excelsia, so that I may stand naked before thee, my God, and that I might have your qualities of beauty and infinite life and unconditional love and infinite substance, which, by the way, I can turn into infinite cash, that I might be free of indebtedness, that I might contribute to my community, to my world, and that I might be known as a dispenser of your heavenly good. O infinite Spirit, if I can demonstrate and realize that truth, then I have found my place in your home and in your heart. That is the story, my friends, of the prodigal from Matthew. When the goody two-shoe brother, says to the father, why are you standing here with outstretched arms to welcome my brother who went out and squandered his inheritance and lived with the so-called women of ill repute? And the father says, son, this is the stay-at-home son. I have always loved you, and all that I have is thine. But where I thought my son was dead, he has come home. And that is why I open my arms, and I'm paraphrasing now, because he could not know anything but the love of a father for his son. The infinite Spirit that is the life principle that you and I are individualizing knows nothing about the self that isn't in the universal self. So forget all that wandering in the wilderness, all that having gone to a place or had an experience or had a relationship or fallen from grace, so-called. Let that go. It's unbecoming to a religious scientist to dwell in that kind of stuff. I know who you are. You know who I am. And we need to support and call each other to greatness. Greatness. I'll close with this thought. I'm probably talking too long, but that's too bad. Or too good. Several years ago, I was in New York. I go to the East Coast quite frequently. And I went to see an opera called Lucia. And there was a young Russian woman who was playing Lucia. And she had just come to the United States. And in her opening opera at the Met, I thought, in my so-called human judgment, that she wasn't reaching the tones that she should. Because I'm such an authority, on opera. But anyhow, this man beside me, it's typical New York, when the final curtain came down, he jumped up. I thought he was going to land on me. And he said, "Bravo, bravo, a diva has been born." And I looked at him and I thought, this man is clearly, he is not in his right mind. Yesterday, I went to see the opening of the Met and in a theater. That's now available to us, which, by the way, is so much more superb than being in the Metropolitan Opera House, because the camera work is so incredibly good. And it's 10% of the price of a ticket in New York, if you're interested in, saving money so you can put it in the church. Well, how's that, Jay? Okay. 250 versus 25. So this diva, so-called, was Anne Boleyn. She was playing that part. In Italian, it's Donizetti's opera called Anna Bolena, the second wife of Henry VIII, who was a beast. But anyhow, this woman, whom I thought was not achieving anything of greatness, sang that role, and I've got to tell you, my dear friends, I just literally left my seat. She was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And we're sitting in a movie house, and people are applauding and clapping and everything. She was so great. And what it said to me is what I've said to you this morning. That potential for greatness is part of our principles. We are religious scientists. And yes, we are asked to believe in these principles. But the real bridge to greatness is when we can say, I not only believe, I know in which I have placed my faith. And my faith is in that truth which says that I am made to image forth the likeness, to use that mind that was in a Buddha, in a Christ Jesus, that's now in this great opera singer. Use that mind to image forth. That's what mind does. It makes images. To image forth the likeness of that which I know to be God. For that is my fulfillment. That is why I came into this incarnation. And that is why I call myself a truth student. That is why I am a religious person, but I have a science to the principles that I espouse, that I believe in. And I demonstrate those principles to the extent that I have grown into them, and I know that in doing that, I am not only fulfilled, but I am fulfilling the purpose for why I am incarnated here. Because, my dear friends, I'll close with this. If you do not do that, you will be frustrated all the days of your life. There's nothing worse, Ernest said, than a frustrated metaphysician. You see, we have a calling. You have a calling. I have a calling. And I don't have to go around telling everybody how great I am, which I try not to do. But I know I'm great. not because of Lloyd Tupper as a human personality in the form of a man. I am the temple of the living presence. And that which I am the temple for lives within me, and it speaks to me, and in my case, it constantly forgives me for those wanderings that I've taken, and maybe you have. I think I've seen a few of you out there wandering around with me. It's always there, and no matter what dumb things I do, all I can hear is, Lloyd, thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And that same voice is beckoning you, for you are the beloved, in whom God is well pleased. Go forth and distribute its likeness. Good morning.